Hi, it's Mary Kay from Backbone Valley Nursery in Marble Falls, Texas. Today we're going to talk about the fiddle fig, one of the most beautiful, popular houseplants that you could find. Now sometimes we find that these plants overgrow their space, or they may lose most of their lower leaves and you don't like that look and you want to fill in at the bottom, or you may just want to take some of the height off the top. There's a way to do this, and it's a propagation method called air layering, and I'm going to walk you through the steps of air layering today. Air layering can be done on a ficus lyrata, which is a fiddle fig. If you're familiar with the ficus benjamina, that's the weeping fig. Also can be done, I've done it many times on rubber trees, all the same family. You can even do it on scheffleras. So I'm going to walk you through the steps. I'm going to lay this guy down so I can get to it. Okay. The first thing that you need to understand are the different layers that are underneath the bark of a woody plant. So we're going to go over here and look at the diagram and learn about what you're looking at when you look inside a plant. This is a cross section of the plant. The outer black layer is the bark. The blue layer is a vascular tissue called phloem. The phloem moves carbohydrates and sugars produced in the leaves throughout the plant and down to the roots. The red part is the important part. That's the cambium. The cambium is a layer of cell division. It's very important. It divides to form xylem, which is the green on the inner layer, and it also divides to form the phloem on the outer layer of the cambium. Here's a vertical section of a stem. The bark's on the outside, and then the blue is the phloem moving the carbohydrates and sugars up and down. The cambium, of course, the red is the layer of cell division. The green is the xylem. Xylem moves water from the roots, water and nutrients from the roots up to the top of the plant. Well, we're going to make some cuts into the stem of this plant, but we're only going to go down to the phloem. We want to leave the cambium to continue to divide tissue for the xylem. We have to keep water moving up to the top of this tree. Essentially what we're going to do is create a place for roots to grow while the plant is still all one piece. So we will go over here now. I've chosen a top of this plant that's not too big. I don't want it to be too big, or we can't grow enough roots to support it. I want it to have some brown woody growth like this. And so I removed some leaves. I want to take about a 3-inch section. I removed a leaf from here, and I start right under here. Let me get my knife. And I'm going to cut all the way around, just shallowly enough so that I'm getting into the phloem, but not to the cambium. Remember, we need to leave the cambium. And then I'm going to go about 3 inches down, and I'm going to cut very shallow. This is a very sharp knife, so I don't have to press very hard. It's better to remove too little at first than too much. And then I'm going to make some vertical cuts about 1/4 of an inch apart all the way around. And I've already done them on the bottom, so I don't need to do that anymore. So that now I'm going to strip off this layer, and I want to be stripping off into the green. You can see the green under there. If I get down to the white, I know that I've gone too far into the xylem, which is what we're trying to leave. So you can just strip off. Make sure you have a nice sharp knife, and strip into just a little bit of that green there. So what I've done is I've left, I've already done the bottom part, so we don't need to worry about that. I have left the xylem tissue, which is on the inside, remember, and that's what moves water from the roots up to the top, so this will stay alive. What I've disturbed is the phloem, which moves any carbohydrates produced in these leaves down to other leaves. That's not going to kill the plant. My goal is to have this part of the plant produce roots in about 2 to 3 months, and when their roots are completely filling my little sphagnum moss, I'll cut the plant off right here. I will plant this in a pot and let it grow on its own. Then my tall plant is going to start branching, and it's going to get fuller. So let me show you the other things that we need to do. So we need to have some long fibered sphagnum moss. I've soaked this in water and gently squeezed moisture out of it. It's still pretty moist. I need some rooting powder, and I used a brush to apply that with. I need a piece of plastic to wrap the stem in, and I've chosen zip ties to tie the top of the bottom. You can use a piece of string, but it needs to be pretty tight. So the first thing we do, we're going to get a rooting hormone, which is just going to help a little bit with the, I'm going to pour some into the top here. You don't need much. More is not better when it comes to rooting hormone. I don't want to use this on my fingers. I'm just going to lightly, you can see, brush it on very, very lightly. More is not better. Remember that with the rooting powder. And now I'll get some sphagnum moss, and I've already squeezed this out. I'm going to put it all the way around the stem where I've made these cuts and opened it up, and I'm going to wrap with the plastic. And you can kind of squeeze some of the water out while you're wrapping it. It needs to stay moist the entire time that this plant is rooting. So if it ever seems to dry out, and you can tell because it's clear, if it ever seems to dry out, you can just clip your zip ties, moisten it, and then retie them. But if you keep your zip ties pretty tight, it's going to keep that moisture in very nicely for you. Here we go. This is why I like the zip ties, because it's a pretty easy, smooth movement. Now there is a plant that has been air layered. It will grow roots again, depends on the time of the year, usually 2 or 3 months. You'll see roots just filling this. At that time, get your pruners. Cut it off right above a node down here, and then you plant this up to the top of the roots right there. Put it in as small a pot as you can, 1 gallon, 2 gallon pot. You want to keep it moist. You may need to put a plastic bag around it after you've cut it off, just to keep moisture in it. Don't let the plastic touch the leaves, or just keep high humidity around it until it really starts to produce more roots. But when you cut this off, of course, you remove the bag, leave the sphagnum moss because the roots are going to be entwined in that, and just plant it with the sphagnum moss. And then you have a new plant. That's how we air layer. I hope you've enjoyed this and learned a little something. Have a great day. Bye-bye.